All right, hey there, guys. Welcome into another episode of The Collectors. I'm your host, Chad Starbuck, and I certainly want to thank you guys for being here. I'm certainly happy to be here, and we have got another fun show for you today. Now, a couple of things before we get started. If you like today's show, be sure and hit that like button down below. And you can also turn on notifications, and you'll be able to get updates when new episodes drop. Be sure and share it out with your friends and family. And as always, be sure and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all the episodes of The Collectors. Now, we have certainly done a lot of fun shows. I have certainly enjoyed all the guests that we've had on the show. We've got people with a wide range of collections. And now I'm kind of looking to mix it up a little bit, and kind of wanted to see what you guys think as far as some future episodes. So if you know somebody that has an obscure collection or a collection that is just maybe overwhelming them at the moment, shoot me a note there in the comments and let me know about them, or shoot me a note on my Instagram at I Remember When Vintage. I'd like to hear about them, and maybe we can have them on a future episode of The Collectors. Now let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. My guest today is Lara Rossignol of the Fresh Pie Vintage. Now, Lara resides in South Carolina, but has certainly made stops all across the country, from Los Angeles to New York to Atlanta, as she has cultivated her passion both for vintage as well as for photography. She's got quite an array of collection of artwork, of books, of all different types of things, and today we'll get a chance to go ahead and chat with her and learn more about her collection. So let's go ahead and join our conversation with Lara Rossignol. All right, Lara, hey, welcome into The Collectors. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's I think that this is going to be fun. I'm really interested in what you have collected over the years, as well as one of the things I kind of want to jump into to start with is you have had a long history or a long career in photography. And I'm really interested to see if that has had any sort of influence in your collecting of what you have been drawn to, and or vice versa. How has your vintage collecting had an influence on your photography?
Well, definitely both ways, probably. But I've always liked older things and old movies, old scenarios, right. Old, vintage has always interested me. The past has always interested me. When I was a little kid, I liked books that had old stories and, and really like Victorian and that kind of thing, right. And older. And, but when I became a photographer, I found visually that I was really drawn to fashion from the 50s and 60s, and just like I was drawn to movies from that period, sure. And older things. And so that always had a little bit of an influence in my style, I think. I didn't always shoot that vintage style things, but when I could work it in, or when I found old props that would be interesting. And, I started photography in the 80s. Okay. I went to a very good art school, and it was kind of the punk rock, new wave. And I liked kind of combining that with vintage because it was just kind of something different, and fun to play with. And I liked it also in makeup. So I would always tell my makeup artist, I liked certain vintage style of makeup or something. And it would escalate from there, as my career went on and I had more control. And I kind of became known for having a vintage style in my photography. And some of my, when I first moved to New York, I got several editorial shoots for Sassy magazine and 17 magazine, all with like a retro theme, because that was what they liked in my work and what, gave me kind of a distinctive look. Because at the time, there weren't a lot of photographers doing that. So it's had a definite influence. And, just as I'm drawn to that in photographs, I was drawn to that in my decor. And I discovered the, flea markets in New York when I first moved to New York City, and, would go every Sunday to 6th Avenue where this one flea market was. And, just always went for things that I liked and that I were just somehow drawn to. And I didn't really know a lot about mid-century or specific styles at that time, but that was what I was drawn to,
Right.
so it just kind of, was a natural progression. And, and I had friends that influenced me who had a lot of knowledge in certain things, and, and you just learn as you go, kind of thing.
Now, yeah, I agree. And I think especially when it comes to decor, there is, when it comes to that mid-century modern, there's just a beautiful look and feel to mid-century modern, and especially how it, how it sits in your house and how it looks on the wall, those types of things. And I certainly love mid-century as well. So I think those are really cool. Now, kind of going back, so that was kind of, your period when you were starting into your photography. Was there something early on in your life that kind of, was there a person that was an inspiration or anything like that to kind of maybe, light that fire in you for vintage?
For vintage,
Or just for collecting in general?
just collecting in general. Well, I had a good friend. I had a good friend named Eiko Oshima, who was a photographer who I went to school with, who was from Japan, and she also liked that style of stuff. So we would go to flea markets together, and and that was, it's always good to have a cohort or someone who has a like mind, as far as that stuff goes. So she definitely, and she had great taste and great style, and she's redone, she's actually become very good at flipping houses in Los Angeles, and so she was definitely a good influence on me as far as that goes. And, a lot of my friends at that time too, just liked it too, I guess, but it was definitely, there wasn't like one that I can remember, one specific thing or person, but Aika was definitely a big influence. We still text all the time, every day. So,
well, you've also kind of moved to different places across the country. I mean, you've been in Los Angeles, you've been in New York, you've been in Atlanta, and now you're in South Carolina. Have you seen, as you've moved to different places across the country, different types of styles of vintage decor or anything like that you've seen? Have you, as you've lived in different spots?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Los Angeles is big on mid-century. People there, it's a huge collecting thing. I went to one estate sale where there was literally over 100 people in line because it was all mid-century, and people had lined up actually days before the sale started. And so it was, I would say LA is a mecca for mid-century, though it's popular everywhere.
Right.
And, in the South, I lived in a, New York's an interesting place because it was very eclectic.
Yeah.
You kind of get what you can carry up 3 flights of stairs. You don't really think in terms of what might fit in your apartment, but what you can actually get into your apartment. I remember carrying a little chair that I found, literally blocks and blocks, to get it home. And it's just a totally different way of living, or what you can fit into a cab, if you're lucky enough to get it to do that. But, when I moved to Atlanta, which is where I went from New York, I grew up in California.
Okay.
Went to school in California, worked for about a year as a photographer in California. Then I moved to New York City, and I lived in New York for about 15, 16 years.
All right.
And, and then I decided to move to Atlanta, which was kind of crazy, but I did. And so, because I didn't really know anybody there, but I had friends in the South, and I just thought, it would be an interesting place to work. And, I always moved to where I could get work as a photographer. That was primary. And Atlanta did have a very good advertising scene as far as work, and I was offered teaching work there. So I thought, okay, if all else fails, I can teach. And I actually did very well there as a photographer. But I lived in a beautiful craftsman bungalow.
Okay.
And so, I could put in it, but I kind of mixed it up and did, it was really very eclectic again, because it had that, bungalow style, and it was a beautiful place. And then moving back to California, I moved into a beautiful mid-century apartment, And I got extremely lucky. And that apartment was actually featured. I photographed for Flea Market Style magazine. And every time I moved, though, I would kind of purge most of my stuff, get to the new place, and then collect new stuff. So I finally decided to make a move for myself. I made the move to South Carolina, not based on what it would do for my photography career, but what it would do for me.
Sure.
And, the long term and what I'm living, and as I really wanted to always have my own store. I wanted to see if I could make this a viable business.
Right.
I really would one day like to have a kind of brick and mortar store of some sort. And and to lower my overhead, South Carolina is just much less expensive than probably every state is less expensive than California right now, but but South Carolina is considerably less expensive. So, and I had very good friends here, and I used to visit this area all the time. So, it felt like it could be a good fit for me. And but I'm still not done. I'm probably going to end up moving to Tennessee in the next year because my brother lives there, and my parents just moved there from California because of the cost of living. So I want to be closer to my parents and my family. But the great thing for me here as someone who loves to thrift and resell is that the most popular stuff here is the rustic farmhouse antique kind of stuff. And, people walk right by the mid-century bohemian 70s mid-mod stuff all the time. And that's the stuff I love. And, and I do like some older things, especially old photographs, daguerreotypes and, different kinds of antique books. I'm a big book person, and, I keep telling myself no more books, and then I buy more books all the time. I did today. And, I sell a lot of books, and I love books, just not as to read, but as just I find them beautiful items. I find them kind of amazing. Yeah. But I do find in the South that the kind of thing I like is very, very affordable when I do find it, and that I can usually make a very good profit selling it online to people who really want it, and it's been really fun.
It's been a good move then so far.
It has been. I mean, I went from staying with my friend in her little house, and then I moved into a very tiny 1-room bungalow, literally a tiny house. And it was so small, and I still had my store. I had all my stuff in a storage unit, except for the bed. And so I was trying to increase all my inventory, adding more and more things. So I was putting them wherever I could, including the stove, inside the oven. I had everything. It was crazy. And I lived in that place for 1 year, but I wanted to make sure I was going well enough before I moved in. In August, I moved into my apartment now, or house. It's a larger bungalow, a 2-bedroom, and I love it. It's perfect. It's just the perfect size for me. And I have a workspace now. I mean, before, my mailing station was my bed, because I really didn't have any space. And this place has, I have a whole room for, doing my mailing, and I have, it's just great. I feel like I live in a store a little bit because it's mostly inventory, but I love everything. I try to buy only what I love, so that as long as I have it, I can enjoy it. Some of it I have to store, but sure. But that's the key, I think, to success in reselling is to buy what you love.
Well, no, that's fantastic that you've been able to kind of start over there in South Carolina, and really, I think that's great. You kind of got a fresh start. So based off of that and having a fresh start, you talked about, you're still, very much into the mid-century and those types of things, and you've been able to find those things where you are. What do you, beyond that, what are the things that you're looking for when you're going to thrift stores, when you're going to the estate sales? What are you passionate about when it comes to buying and collecting today?
Right. Well, I mean, my first thought when I'm buying is looking for things that I think I can sell for profit. Sure. Good profit. That's always my first thing. But I'm always on the lookout there are things that I love particularly. I have become, I was never a big figurine collector or anything, but I do love animals, and I've been drawn to certain mid-century little animals and small things, miniature
Sure.
things.
Yep.
Like, for example, this is a little cute little fox that I got.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a little Russian fox, and just very sweet, not particularly amazing, but this was a really cool little mid-century raccoon
Oh,
that
yeah.
I got at another sale. It's very sharp Charlie Harper like. And at
Yep.
that sale, I actually scored a bunch of Charlie Harper prints.
Okay.
And so I allowed myself this little gift, you know. And I also like this little 50s figurine. I got this at an estate sale. Just reminded me of me back in the day. And then this is actually one that I got on Etsy this is a Sylvia Hood. Now, if anyone knows Sylvia Hood, she was a set designer in the 1960s, and she made these owls and other animals and other figurines out of this like kind of interesting resin that she created. And
Okay.
people think it's chalkware, but it's actually stronger than that. And this one has a sticker on the bottom, and it was actually discolored, and I recolored it black to kind of fix it. I had a very large one that I had scored. Look, the owls are the most collectible and the hardest to find.
Okay.
So an owl I sold recently for over $200.
Oh, wow.
This I paid $5 for on Etsy a while ago because it wasn't in good condition. And I just bought it for myself because it's not it's not perfect. The one, but if you do find a Sylvia Hood owl, and they usually are signed on the side as well.
I was going to say, how do you, is there a way to recognize them?
Yeah.
Is it design, but does she sign
this
them?
one has a sticker on the bottom that says Sylvia Hood, but and it probably is signed on the side too, but I don't have the right glasses on to tell you if that's true. But the bigger ones are, and they come in like 3 different sizes, or maybe even 4, and they have her name very distinctly written on the side, Sylvia Hood. But she was an interesting lady. She was from Pasadena, and she worked on the show Route 66 or something like that.
Oh, right.
Or Sunset something.
That strip.
Yeah, one of those shows that was actually before my time, so I don't remember exactly. But she was kind of a cool lady. And so I'm also always on the lookout for any Shirley Jackson books. I'm a big Shirley Jackson fan.
Okay.
So she wrote, most people know her for The Haunting, which they redid. They kind of did a strange version of recently on Netflix. And then she wrote, and they also have this on Netflix, We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which is my favorite book of all time. And this cover was done by William Thiessen, and it's one of the more collectible editions because of the cover art. Actually, It's a 70s edition, or 60s to 70s. This was done, and I got this on eBay. It was sold in a lot with 2 other of her books.
Yep.
And I think I paid $30 for the lot. This book can go for $100 by itself. Wow. So so I was just like, I snapped that up, and then I sold the other 2 books in my Etsy shop and made my money back. So I basically got it for free.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking for other editions, because then I this one's mine, but I would sell, other editions.
Yep.
And I love deer. I have a thing for deer. And, my friends joke that because I used to collect Hello Kitty, and I'm actually like a 16-year-old Asian girl trapped in the body of this woman, because that's my sensibility. So this was this cutest pillow in the world that I got at an estate sale, and I fully intended to sell it. I know I paid $6 for it. Yep. I got it home. I photographed it. I put it in my shop. I set it on this chair in the corner of my room, and I was like, I cannot sell it. And I took it off. I took it off Etsy. Maybe eventually I will sell it, but I found that sometimes if I hang something on the wall, then it might not make it into the store. It just depends. I have a lot of things on the wall, but if it looks really good, I'm like, I think I'll keep that for a while. But
you mentioned there just a little bit about, how you took that pillow and you took pictures of it, and you actually did list it and you're ready to go. I'd like to just touch on a little bit in regards to photography as it relates to Etsy and Instagram and all that, because I think people understand that it's a very important piece of the selling process, or really just the collecting process. If you're looking to, display your collection on Instagram or something like that.
Right.
You
It
know,
is. Yeah.
I don't, right now, I don't take very good pictures. And I know that probably affects the things that I sell. Talk about that a little bit in regards to kind of what you do. And maybe it's, giving our watchers a little bit of tips in regards to what they can do to take better photographs.
Sure. I mean, it definitely is a big advantage that I have. And being able to take good pictures of your items, whether you're selling them or just showing them on Etsy. I mean, there's a lot of people, or Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of people who sell directly on Instagram.
Right.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and the ones that I know that do really, really well do really nice pictures, like the white pepper vintage that you had on your show. And there's a few others that I see that do very nice, photographs. And for Etsy, especially, I think Etsy has a higher aesthetic kind of overall than eBay. No offense to eBay, but eBay actually wants everybody to do like a white background. They want, they're kind of striving for the Amazon appeal. I don't know why. Where Etsy has a different vibe completely. I do think it's good to keep it simple and clean. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they don't understand the orientation of the site where they're putting the photographs.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, they take a vertical picture, but the picture is going to display horizontally. Yeah. And that happens a lot on Etsy. And you'll see pictures in the thumbnails cropped where you can't even see the item. Yep. When you go through and look at all the pictures, it's turned funny. So that's one of the biggest things. It's like, you really need to understand that you need to turn your camera it can be your phone. I actually do a lot of my photographs with my phone. There's things that are easier for me because I don't have a macro lens. So it's easier for me to use my phone to take certain kinds of pictures.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what you use, it's how you use it. So you need to understand that you want the picture to be horizontal. If you're doing it for Etsy, you need to pull back a little bit and give more space around it. You could always crop in, you cannot add more. Yeah. So, and keep your background really clean and simple. The other thing is lighting is the most important thing. You do not need a fancy lighting setup, but you need good light. And I use all natural light to take all of my pictures. It's very, very simple. I do it in a little space aside from my kitchen. I have one window. I have a back door that I can open if I need more light. Yep. But it's all natural light. And, and just what you want is good, indirect natural light. You don't want the sun beating down on your objects. That's not going to photograph well. You want basically shady, indirect light, a porch, an open area that has, shaded, nice, indirect light is the best lighting situation to take pictures. Okay. And then one more thing I would say is you need to do some kind of editing. You need to learn how to use some kind of editing software, even if it's just the editing software on your phone. Everybody's iPhone has editing software. You can turn the picture to the right angle. You can crop the picture. You can adjust the exposure. You can do all of that on your phone if that's the only choice you have. I mean, Lightroom is a good option. You can, it's a very easy one to use. There's tutorials on how to use it. It's worth it to take the time to learn how to use nothing comes right out of my camera or my phone camera and goes anywhere. Nothing, nothing. Everything gets edited to some degree, so it's like making a cake and not putting any icing on it. It's like you wouldn't serve it that way. So, so those are my main things.
No, those are great. Those are great tips. And again, it's I'm not doing some of those, so I am going to make a conscious effort to be able to do that as well. To make my photographs stand out a little bit more. I think if you're standing out a little bit more, you're probably going to have more eyes on your pictures.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have sold the same item other people have listed for more money. And I know it's just because mine looks good. It looks better and they can see it. People want to see what they're buying. They want to be able to, and you want to also include as much detail as you can, the back, the front. I see people that show a book and all they do is show the cover of the book.
Yeah.
You need to show the copyright page. You need to show when it was published. It's not just about, I mean, you need to, they're just so, you want to show as much detail as you can.
No, those are good ideas and certainly good tips. Another thing I want to touch on, you mentioned a little while ago when you were talking about, I think it was where you picked up, maybe it was the pillow or another item, that you picked up some prints. I think you picked up about 9 or 10 prints or pieces of artwork.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Charlie Harper. Yeah.
Yeah, the Charlie Harpers. I couldn't remember the name. So the Charlie Harpers, which I think you had told me that was probably one of your biggest scores that you had over the years.
Yeah, that I've actually done very well with art on several occasions. That was probably the best one.
Okay.
Charlie Harper was a great mid-century artist, people who knew him. And most of those, there was an estate sale not far from me, and the person had collected it, and these weren't just prints, these were serigraphs. Serigraphs are master print, like done by the artist. And they were all signed and dated and the whole thing. And you can still buy his work through, he's no longer with us, but you can buy his work. There's an active studio of his, I think his daughter runs or somebody in his family runs. And so I was actually able to go on there and look at the pricing and price them. But I paid about between $30 and $50 a print at the sale. And I bought 10. And because I went back the second, so I went one day, then I went back and got more because that night I sold several on just through Instagram. I sold 8 of them directly through Instagram. Wow. Some to people I knew and some to people I didn't know. And I sold them from between $200 and $400 a print. Yeah. So a serigraph. So that worked out very well. And then I sold the last 2 actually through eBay. Okay. And I do sell a little bit on eBay. I find eBay is good for things that are a little more rare and scarce. I feel like eBay is so saturated with sellers and items that you can't get as good a price on eBay as I can get on Etsy. That's what I usually find. But if it's a rare item, I just sold a chess set Sunday for over $400 that I paid $70 for at an estate sale. And I just knew an auction was probably the best way to get the best price for that. So I do use eBay on occasion. And I also bought a beautiful group of paintings. I think original oil paintings, especially portraits of women, do really, people are really, that's a very big, hot thing. And I actually found them through a estate sale auction where you go and pick the stuff up, but you bid online. This was not long after I moved here. And I scored 7 by the same woman, and I sold 5 and then I paid a little over $200, a little under $300 for all 7 of them. And I almost doubled my money with the first sale. I sold the first one for over $400, and I sold 3 more for that around that price. And I ended up selling 5 of them. And I still have 2 left that weren't that great. One was of a man. Sorry, men don't sell as well. And then one was of a child and they're in my Etsy shop, and then maybe they'll sell eventually. And but art can be a really good investment if you get the right stuff and you get especially any original art or known artists. So I took a chance with I'm finding that too, that sometimes you just need to spend a little more money to make a little more money kind of thing.
Yeah. So, no, I'm the same way. A couple of things, where I've recently started to do a lot more online estate sale auctions, where you can bid on multiple different types of items, and then they're either shipped to you or you pick them up. But I have also gotten into art lately, and it's for one. I've just been a lot more attracted to art lately. I just find it to be, really fascinating, and it's it's fun to go and buy it knowing that you're going to sell it, but you can also display it, in my home for a certain period of time until it does sell. So I can throw it on my wall.
For sale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I actually just picked up some, 1920s Art Deco numbered prints.
I saw those on your Instagram. They're really it really does pay to take your time and do your research. That's definitely one thing, I've learned. If you can find who the artist is, and if they're not a known artist, then like with the Dorothy pictures, that she was not in the paintings that I mentioned, she was not a known artist. I think she was actually an art teacher possibly. Sure. But they were really beautiful, accomplished paintings. They were signed and dated. They were all from the 30s. And so, the more and the more and I just, when I listed them, I was like Southern artist, but the content was so good. And, that's really what, you have to trust your instinct. If you love it, somebody else is probably going to love it.
Exactly.
So you just want to trust your instinct on that. But it's interesting. And always a little bit of a gamble, but usually I'm not spending that much on stuff. It's rare that I spend a lot of money, on a single item.
Yep.
But with the chess set, I had seen that at the sale and researched it before I went. So I had an idea that it was valuable before I bought it, and, so that's why I like estate sales that have very good photographs where you can really see what you're buying, what they are selling, so you can actually figure out what it would be worth, if it's worth it to buy before you go. So,
right. No, that's very, that certainly helps us out as buyers to be able to go in knowing that there's something that we want to go after. Going back a little bit again to kind of some of the things that you're looking for these days. Is there anything else that you certainly want to tell us about? That
I also sell a lot of cameras, and I mean, obviously I'm a photographer, but I'm not like a tech whiz, I mean, I know more than most people probably about cameras, but I'm not, I can't take one apart and put it back together, kind of thing. But I do know enough to know what's good. And what's interesting to me about cameras right now is that I think that a lot of younger generations are very into film photography.
Yep.
And so film is not dead. That's hashtag film is not dead. I mean, people are definitely young people especially are very into film photography. And so I always look for not just 35 millimeter or film cameras, fancy ones, but little point and shoot cameras are very popular. And I sell a ton of those. And I also Polaroid cameras, anything that actually you can get film for. Sure. So there are some Polaroid cameras that are kind of obsolete, the land cameras, some of the ones that have the bellows and have those, they don't make the film for anymore. But the the SX70s, the 600s, the point, those little kinds of Polaroid cameras, they do make the film for. And I'll actually take a film pack with Polaroid. The film pack powers the camera. Yep. The battery is in the camera. And old film is usually not good anymore. The battery dies. So old film, don't ever buy old Polaroid film at a estate sale, I would say, because it's probably not good. Yeah. But you can buy, there's people still making it. And so I take a empty cartridge, but the battery is in it and the slide is in it. And I can test a camera at an estate sale or a thrift store and see if it works before I buy it. And, but even if things don't work, people will buy them for parts and repair, but you really don't want to spend money on stuff if it doesn't work. Probably. I actually have a huge bag full of cameras that don't work, that are point and shoot cameras that I just couldn't get to work. And I'm actually probably going to sell those as a lot or something. Yeah. But, a lot of them don't. But when one does, I can usually get a minimum of $30 up to, I've sold one point and shoot for almost $200. Some of them are worth a lot of money. And so that's just a good little bolo item that I'm always looking for. Also, other vintage tech items like little tape recorders and stuff like that can be, but a lot of times those don't work either. So you really don't want to invest a lot of money. If I can get it for $5 or less, I'll take a chance, but if I have if there's no way to test it, also always check the battery compartment to see if there's corrosion.
Yep.
Because a lot of times people leave the batteries in and then there's corroded. So you just can say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Don't buy that. But I just listed a couple of cameras and bought some, that I bought this weekend and was testing cameras today. So that's another thing that I always look for. Cause it's just it's good, fast money. So
exactly.
that I like, and I like that there are people that are interested in film photography still. And then and I always, when I send those out, I always tell them, if you have any questions, let me know. I do have in my Etsy bio that I'm a photographer and stuff. Not everyone reads that, but if they do, or they, then, I'm always happy to help them. I teach at Greenville Tech. So,
okay.
So I still teach photography sometimes.
Well, I think that's really cool. And cameras, also they just make a really nice piece of home decor as well. And I think that's why
they do, and great props. And that's the other thing too, that I think all the analog technology is sellable because people are making movies all the time that take place in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever. So, I have sold things to different set and prop houses and things like that and stuff. So whether it works or not is actually not always that important. It's how it looks.
Yeah, exactly.
And so definitely makes for great decor, and it's just fun. It's, and I just find it to be an easy flip. So, so that's one thing. And I also always I like old, photographs and things like that can be interesting to me too. I mentioned daguerreotypes before. I've had some really good I live in the South, right? So there's a Pickens flea market in the South, which is this really odd little flea market that they have on a Wednesday of all days. And, but people come from all over and I was there once and there was this man from Georgia and he had a bunch of daguerreotypes and he had these kind of tucked away. And anyway, I ended up buying 2 from him. I negotiated. It was so funny because he wouldn't take a check. He's like, I wouldn't take a check from my relatives. And so I had to walk and get like cash and come back. But I bought from him one of these 2 twins. And a daguerreotype, if you don't know, is one of the earliest forms of photography. And it's done on a reflective surface. And they only produced it for about 10 years. Then they started doing tintypes, which were much less expensive, a lot easier to produce, and are a lot more prevalent. So daguerreotypes were during the Civil War period and are just a lot more rare. But the content of what the photograph is very important.
Sure.
And this was two twins and children, and I knew it looked a little odd. It looked like they were both dressed as girls, but one was a boy. And that was the interesting thing. That was the oddness of it. And I think I ended up paying him $100 for the 2 daguerreotypes. And I got home, looked at it, put it up, listed it. Within 45 minutes, I sold that twin daguerreotype for over $350.
Wow.
On Etsy. And I knew it would. So I actually have a guy who buys, who is either people, who have, I don't know how you do it because I don't know how to do it, but you can set up an alert if something you're interested in is posted. So he must have gotten an alert, and because he's bought a few from me, and he actually is a seller.
Okay.
And a former photographer and knew me as a photographer. So it's kind of cool. And I'm happy if he takes it and can find even a better, somebody willing to spend $800 on it. How great is that? I think that's fine. I have no problem with that. But he clarified it was a boy and a girl, which I was pretty sure it was, but you could tell from the haircut. It was just very interesting that I just find that kind of period photography. I really do love the Victorian period, even though I'm more of my design decor aesthetic is a little more modern, but I love books from that period. I have some amazing I just found you had that scrapbook girl on, and I follow her on Instagram, And I found one at a sale from the 1800s last week that I'm really, was really amazing and really interesting. And I love stuff like that, and books from that period, anything,
Right.
all of that.
Well, that's a lot of fun, and that's really I think it's really cool, the different types of things that you are into, and in kind of how your knowledge of photography probably certainly helps you when you're looking for cameras or looking for prints and things like that, to have that historical knowledge of what it is that you're looking for. So that's really cool. I want to just kind of wrap up a little bit with giving people an opportunity or an understanding of how they can connect with you. And I know you're on Instagram, but what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram is great. That's my main social media thing. I mean, I have a Twitter, and I have a Pinterest, and I have, Facebook. Facebook, I always feel is like for family and that kind of thing.
Right.
I don't really go on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for my shop, but Instagram is great. And I also have my website for my photography. I mean, I do commissions. I just I do photograph. I don't do weddings, but I do, I do portraits and things like that. And, and I'm always happy to answer any questions if people have questions about, a certain kind of thing they found or something like that. If I know the answer, and can help, I'm happy to, So.
Well, that's fantastic, and I think obviously on Instagram it's Fresh Pie Vintage. We'll make sure that people get an opportunity to see that, and we'll list out the other places too. So, Lara, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a pleasure having you on, and I hope you keep collecting.
Thank you. Oh, you can't stop me.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.
All right. Hey, that was a lot of fun. I certainly want to thank our guest today, Lara Rossignol of Fresh Pie Vintage. It's really interesting to talk with her and learn about her career in photography, as well as what she's passionate about when it comes to collecting and vintage items and such. And I think it was really helpful learning from her some of the tips related to being able to take better pictures. That is something that I think I can do a lot better with. So I'm going to put some of those things into practice myself. So thanks again to Lara. And I also want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for following along with us and for watching today's show. Be sure and hit that like button down below. Again, turn on those notifications. Share this out with your friends and family, and also be sure and subscribe so you can catch all of the episodes of The Collectors. And be sure and join us next time as we travel the country in search of another unique collector and collection. Take care and keep collecting.